and welcome to another knitting podcast episode. My name is Luisa, but everybody calls me Lu, and today is Sunday, March 22nd, and definitely not my usual day to sit down and record a podcast. But last week was one of those weeks and it just didn't happen, so here I am today. I hope this episode will go live on Tuesday, but who knows what might happen between today and Tuesday, so we'll see. On today's agenda, I have 2 finished objects. My winter projects are finally done and ready to wear, and I also have 3 new cast-ons to celebrate the new season. I just couldn't control myself, and I have 3 new projects. One of which is a lime green sweater. The other one is a project I'm terrified of. I think I'm going to mess it up somehow. And well, the second one and the third one, we'll see. But let's start with my 2 finished objects. And the first one is my Salty Days sweater by Veronika Lindberg. The yarn I used for this project was a combo of fingering weight held double and 1 strand of mohair. The fingering weight yarn I chose was this Lana Grossa Uni Mylan White in the colorway 1380, a gorgeous dark pink. This is a sock yarn, 80%, is it 80%? Yeah, 80% wool, 20% polyamide. And the mohair I chose is, I have a new one here. This is Concept by Katia, 50 mohair shades in the colorway 39. This is was my color combo for this project, and I couldn't be happier with the color these 2 yarns created, and my Salty Days is finally done. Since I last showed you guys this project, it was just missing the color, so I went ahead and picked up stitches and knit the entire color. I was worried, and I think I mentioned this to you guys last episode, but I was worried that I had a giant neck opening prior to picking up stitches for the color, and I was going to have to do something to mitigate that, but it wasn't necessary. As soon as I picked up stitches, this neck opening cinched up quite a bit, and I would say now it's the perfect look that I was trying to achieve with this project. The only modification I made to the color was I just shortened it by 7 rows or rounds just to get a little bit of extra room around my neck. I can't stand anything too close to my neck. It's not a comfortable experience. I don't like it. So this is what I have here, and well, I blocked it finally. And there's one thing I didn't really understand after blocking, because it grew. I mean, I was expecting it to grow a little bit, but I did a mid project block when I was about here on the first sleeve to see if I was going to get any extra length with blocking on the sleeves, and also how this width here situation was going to play out after blocking. Everything worked. It didn't grow a single centimeter with blocking. And then I went ahead, finished both sleeves, finished the collar and everything, and did a final block. And now I have 8 extra centimeters on the sleeves, in length, I mean. So it's definitely long. I don't think I have anything like this in terms of sleeve length in my wardrobe, but I actually like it. You can still see my fingers, but it's definitely long. But I'm trying to see this as a happy surprise, a cozy and comfy look, which definitely is. It's really comfy, especially with this extra long sleeve. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I don't intend on doing some sort of sweater surgery or even frogging, ripping back this entire cuff and the diamond section. I would definitely not be doing that. And if over time this extra length starts to bother me somehow, then I will figure something out and fix that. But so far so good. Let me show you the back. I don't think I've ever showed you guys the little trick I did here to get extra stretchy edge here, or where this shoulder line is. So maybe I should take this off the mannequin so I can show you guys up close. Let me try it like this. So like I said, this has been blocked. So this is the final look of the little trick with yarn overs to get a stretchier edge. And you can see the fabric is not cinching up here where I picked up stitches to knit the sleeves. And you can see some sort of stretch. Where is the shoulder seam? Here. You can see some sort of stretch here. So it's really comfy to wear, and I don't have absolutely anything to complain about this sweater. So now let me put it back here. All right, and this was my third Salty Days sweater. I don't know if it's going to be my last one, but at least for the near future it certainly is. I absolutely loved this dark pink. In my opinion, it's so much prettier than the lighter pink I used for my first version of the Salty Days that ended up, well, teeny tiny. It didn't really fit me. Actually, the yarn I chose for that project was this one. I am going to talk about this project in a little bit, but just to show you the color, this was my first version of the Salty Days, and this is the second one, and I couldn't be happier with the final result. But since this is a finished object, let me get my notebook right over there that I forgot to grab before pressing record, and we can talk about how much yarn I've used and the cost of this project. And let me find my notes. So, talking about this fingering weight yarn that I held double, I've used 564 grams. The pattern calls for 500 grams of DK weight yarn, so keep that in mind. And I also went up a size when knitting the sleeves, and apparently now I have extra long length on the sleeves, so I think it makes sense to use a little bit more yarn than the pattern calls for. And when it comes to how much of the mohair strand I've used, where is it? Here. I've used 102 grams of mohair. The pattern calls for 125. So even with all the modifications I've made, I've used a little bit less than the pattern calls for. And now I have these two skeins. One is new, and this one I've tapped into a little bit, so that's why there's tape here to hold the label in place. I have no idea what to do with this leftover, but I'm not the tiniest bit worried because I loved the color, and I am certain I'm going to find a nice project to use up this leftover. Talking about cost now, I've paid 71 euros and 95 cents for the yarn. I'm only talking about how much yarn I've used to knit up my project, so I'm not taking into account my leftovers. I just have this little bit left over of my main yarn, and I already have plans for that. And I didn't pay anything for the pattern because, like I said, this was my third Salty Days, so I already had the pattern in my library. So the final cost of this project was 71 euros and 95 cents. And now I can finally say I have a Salty Days sweater in the right size that I actually wear. So this was my first finished object of today's video, and now let's say goodbye to winter with my last finished object of the season, which is my Afra Sweater by Irene Lin. The yarn I chose for this project was a yarn I had in my stash. I've used Drops Flora in the colorway 07. This, well, let me show you the name. Drops Flora, this lovely medium beige, I would say. This yarn is a blend of wool and alpaca, and I really liked the fabric it created. This was my second time knitting with this yarn. The first time was a Salty Days sweater, but it was a gift knit and I've paired this drops flora with one strand of mohair, so it doesn't really count, I would say. Last time I showed you guys this project, I was done with the first sleeve and I just had a little bit left on the second one, and I also had to finish the body, so I was about here on the body, so you can see that it's finished. I was, well, kind of delaying picking up the body once again because I felt like it was going to take forever because of this really wide twisted rib hem here on the body, but it was surprisingly enjoyable to knit, so I'm really glad I took the time and I had the patience to finish this project, because this one took the entire winter from cast on to bind off, almost 3 months. It's definitely more than I am willing to spend on a single project, but I think the result is worth the extra trouble and hours gone into this project. With blocking, I got a few extra centimeters in width and nothing at all in length, but that's okay. I wanted to block because of this lace section here on the body, and also to get a better look here next to the cuff on the sleeves. So now everything stays nice and flat when I'm not wearing the sweater, but it doesn't really matter because when I'm wearing it you can't really see this. But this is it. It didn't grow at all width-wise, so I still get this really puffy and statement sleeve. I don't think I'm going to need a second one because, well, I don't think my wardrobe needs another Afra sweater. If you look at my wardrobe, you can see that this is quite a focal point of my wardrobe, so I don't think I need a second one, but I really enjoyed the pattern and the way it is written. This was my second time knitting a Irene Lin's pattern, and well, I really like her writing style. So this is the back, and you can see the detail here on the sleeves. Now the only thing that really changed with blocking was this V-neck opening here. I got a few extra centimeters around my neck, and this section here next to the saddle shoulders, there was a little bit of fabric bunching up here prior to blocking, but now I think everything stays nice and flat. There was a little bit of bunching up here also, but I think now everything looks good and really neat, if I do say so myself. The only thing I was worried when I was finishing the body on this project was the fit here under the arm, because this is a quite, oversized fit on me, and I wasn't really sure how this fit was going to work around here, but I think it looks really good. I am going to try this on for you guys if I haven't showed you the B-roll footage already, but I think there's a good fit around this area. I was worried there was going to be kind of extra fabric bunching up here and it was going to look something like this, but it does not. I think there's enough room for the fabric to live, let's say, and I am really happy with the final fit of it. So now let's talk about how much yarn I've used and the cost of this project. Yarn amounts first, and I've used 440 grams of this drops flora. This is fingering weight yarn. In meterage, this equals to 1848 meters. The pattern calls for 1680 meters of DK weight yarn. The pattern calls for Cardiff Cashmere Classic, but a lovely viewer shared with me that Cardiff Cashmere Classic knits up as more of a fingering weight than a true DK weight yarn. But even then, I've used more yarn than the pattern calls for, and I think that makes total sense because I've made quite a few changes to the yoke of this sweater to make it fit the vision I had in mind and my body type. So my sleeves are extra puffy. I didn't go with a cropped length on the body the pattern calls for. I think this is more of a full-length sweater, but I am really happy with it. I'm not really into cropped fits. I don't think it really suits me. So, well, this is it. This is my Afra sweater. And now talking about cost, I've paid 21 euros and 53 cents for this dropped flora that I've used to knit up my Afra sweater. I still have, let me look at my yarn cabinet over there. I still have 4 balls of this yarn, and it's going back into my stash because I have no plans for it right now, especially after spending 3 months on this project. I don't want to see this yarn for a good while, and I've paid 7 euros and 94 cents for the pattern. So in total, this project cost me 29 euros and 47 cents, and I can't believe it is finally done. So this was the last of my winter knitting projects, and now let's celebrate spring with my 3 new cast-ons. Right, if you guys watched my spring knitting plans video, you know that I have way too many plans, way more than I am actually able to accomplish this season. I didn't really know what I wanted to cast on first, so I followed many of your suggestions, and the first project I cast on was a lime green sweater that I am so excited about. This is actually, well, let me introduce you to my Stockholm Sweater V-neck, and there's yarn here. This is my Stockholm Sweater V-neck by PetiteKnit. I forgot to put a spare cable here, so it doesn't really fit my mannequin, and well, I don't really want to stop recording to add an extra cable, so this will have to do for now. Let me slide my stitches to the end of my needles so you can see a little bit better, but this is it. I don't know if I mentioned already, but this is a pattern by PetiteKnit, and this lime green yarn is gorgeous. This yarn is a combo, well, this color is a combo of fingering weight plus mohair. The fingering weight yarn I chose is Veronika Lindberg. This is sock yarn, 80% wool, 20% nylon, in the colorway 379 Sprout. It's gorgeous. I cannot believe I'm enjoying this color as much. And my mohair is Veronika Lindberg in the colorway 326 Meadow. This is my color combo for this project, and this is my Stockholm sweater. I love a good V-neck, so it was no surprise that I was going to cast on a V-neck project, and I was a little bit surprised with the construction of this project because I was expecting something really basic, just a boxy fit with a V-neck featuring a really wide ribbing around the neck, but there's actually a fair amount of short rows to shape the shoulder, so let me try to explain this to you. First of all, let me show you the back. So you cast on stitches for the back. The back panel is just a really wide rectangle, nothing really special, but once you pick up stitches to knit the first shoulder, once you pick up stitches to knit the shoulder, you actually do a fair amount of short rows to shape the back of the neck. This section here of the back where it faces your neck, it sits actually really low on your back, and when you cast on stitches, when you pick up stitches to start shaping the shoulder, you're actually still shaping the back of the neck. So you do some decreases here. Can you understand what I'm trying to explain? So you actually do some decreases here to finish shaping the back of the neck. And then once that is done, you do some short rows. Well, you continue doing short rows to start shaping here the side of the neck, and then you start doing increases to get the V-neck shape. So this is how far I've gotten. I've journeyed around, but there isn't really that much under the arm as of yet. And I don't really know what I did when I was working on the short rows, because one side looks way neater than the other. Let me show you the first one. Can you see my short rows? This hasn't been blocked yet, so maybe it will get better with blocking. And this is the second one. Now, on camera, I don't think there's much of a difference, but in person, this one I'm showing you now, looks better, looks a little bit neater. I would say maybe I can show you side by side. It isn't really a nice way to show you guys this short roll situation, but well, this is it. I am pretty off gauge, but that was to be expected. I'm always off gauge. I am a pretty tight knitter, and I'm knitting this on a 4mm needle, which is the called for needle size. This pattern calls for 2 strands of mohair held together throughout, and I'm using fingering weight plus mohair. I know it's spring already and I'm knitting with mohair, but I love a good fluffy yarn, and I couldn't be more excited to cast on a lime green sweater. So here I am. Like I was saying, I am pretty off gauge. I knitted my first swatch using a 4.5mm, but I didn't really like the fabric. It felt too open. Even after blocking, I didn't really like it. So I decided to size down my needles to a 4mm, and I am pretty happy with the fabric I have now. Let me show you. With the fabric I have now, I really love the stitch definition and everything, but since I sized down my needles, I was already off when I worked on my swatch with a 4.5. So now that I'm working on this project with a 4mm, I am, well, even further off on gauge. So I decided to just stick to this needle size that I really liked the fabric it created, and I went up a size in the pattern. And I think everything is going to work out just great. This yarn combo is quickly becoming my favorite one out of everything that I've ever worked so far. I just love the fabric. Like I said, stitch definition is great. Both yarns come in a really good assortment of colors, so I love that. And the cherry on top is, it is affordable. Well, as far as mohair and fingering weight can be. This Aveta yarn, I just really love it, and it's easy to find online here where I live. I know it's not really that easy to come by for people who live in the US, as I'm told, but around here it's really easy to get my hands on a few balls of this yarn, and I love this mohair, this Filcolana Tilia. This is my favorite mohair by far, and I also really love the price point of this mohair. But, well, did I make any modifications to this pattern? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I did. I shortened the yoke, as always, by 3 centimeters, and I still think I could have shortened it a little bit more to more like 5 centimeters, but I think it's going to work out just great. I'm trying to get used to deeper yokes, but I think I'm fine with it. I still have to work on I feel a little bit more on the body here to get a clear image of what's happening here under the arm, but I think I'm on the right track. This V-neck though is really deep, like really deep. It goes like here. You can't even see. Right now it sits around here on me when I try this on, but I think that's actually how it's supposed to look, because like I mentioned, the pattern calls for a really wide collar, a ribbing, so this V-neck depth here is going to end what? Around here once the collar is done. So I think everything looks good. We'll see. And there's a little bit of neck shaping, and since I wanted to cast on this project, I decided to take the opportunity to, well, use this as a guide for my next project, because, Well, before I talk about my next project, let me show you my unconventional cast on. Not really unconventional, but it is definitely out of my comfort zone because I decided to cast on a vest. This is my first time working on a vest. It will be my first time wearing a vest and will be my first time owning a vest. So I'm really excited about that. And well, I just wanted something lighter on my needles, and I wanted to save my tea patterns for when we are like halfway through spring and get the heavier projects out of my needles first. So this is the Side Bow Slipover by Sarah Antipenkov. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, so I'm really sorry for that. And the yarn I chose for this project is the yarn I've reclaimed from my first attempt of knitting the Salty Days sweater. So this is Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in the colorway, in the colorway 3511. This pale pink, ballerina pink, something like that. It's this color here, and I'm holding it single throughout. Since I've reclaimed this yarn from my first Salty Days sweater, I have like 15 different cakes of yarn like this, and this is the only ball that looks nice. Well, not really that nice, but it looks more like the one you buy at the shop. I think this colorway is discontinued, so I decided to cast on a vest since I don't have enough meterage to knit most sweater projects out there. The pattern calls for a worsted weight yarn, if I'm not mistaken, and this Sandnes Garn Double Sunday is a DK weight yarn. So, as always, I am off gauge, but now I realize I forgot to show you guys my project so far. So this is the back panel, and it is completely done. I can't really put this on the mannequin, but maybe you can see the shape. Yeah, you can kind of see. Yeah. So the back panel is completely done. It is blocked. I blocked this yesterday so that I could show you guys as best as possible. And I didn't really make any modifications to this back panel. Well, no, that's a lie. I shortened this armhole shaping a little bit because I felt like it was going to be too long on me. I have kind of a short torso, so I removed what? I think 10 rows just to get a little bit of a shorter body. So this is it. You start by casting on stitches for the neck, and then you shape this edge where you're going to pick up stitches to knit the shoulder, and then you knit a straight section for a bit and start shaping the armhole. Yeah. And this is what I did. So I shortened this section here by 10 rounds, and this is it. This is where the tie is going to be, the bow on the side here, and it's going to sit pretty low according to the pictures I've seen, but I think that's the intended fit for a vest. I don't know anything when it comes to how a vest is supposed to look on the body, but I think it's going to look nice, so I'm going with the flow, I guess. So I'm ready to pick up stitches to start the first shoulder, and this is it. Let me show you guys up close. Maybe you get a better idea. Since this is a reclaimed yarn, I am pretty happy with the fabric I'm getting and the stitch definition. It looks pretty even. It looks neat, I would say. I'm not seeing any wonky stitches. I like the look of this 1x1 ribbing. I went with a really wide ribbing. I think that's actually the code for width for the ribbing. I have around 10 centimeters here, and I really like it. I blocked this yarn right after I frogged my first salty days, so I'm not knitting with noodle-like yarn. So there's that. I cannot stand noodle-like yarn. So yeah, this is it. This is a really simple, really easy, really straightforward project, and I hope I'm going to wear this a lot because I'm certainly enjoying the process of working on this project. I just hope I in fact wear this once it's done, but I think I'll have enough opportunity to wear this while it's still spring, just as a second layer to keep my torso warm and cozy. But well, this is it. Not really much to say about this project now. So now let's go to my third and final cast on. And well, prepare yourselves because I don't know if I'm going to mess it up or not. So I decided to cast on another sweater because I just love working on sweaters. It's by far my favorite kind of garment to knit, and I really wanted to cast on a colorwork sweater because I'm trying to get better at colorwork knitting, and I know this is more of a wintry project, but I was so excited to cast it on, and well, I did. This is my Porcelain Sweater by Knit. Let me show you. You can't really see much now, but can you see? No, my needles are not cooperating with me. Let me try like this. Yeah, you can kind of see what is going on here. So, I know this is color work with mohair and it's already spring, but well, like I said, I was excited, so I decided to cast it on. I have other projects that I plan on casting on this season that aren't as heavy looking as this, so I decided to get this off my needles while it's not as warm outside. So that was my reasoning for this project, and the yarn I chose for this is my favorite yarn combo for this dark color, this red one. Well, let me show you this project up close first. Let me show you like this. Now you can see. Yeah. The yarn I chose for this dark pink wine color is Fioccolana Avetta in the colorway 245. I think this colorway name is Burgundy? Deep Burgundy? Something like that. It's a wine color, and I'm pairing it with Fioccolana Tilia in the colorway 382. I don't know if they share the same colorway name, but well, it's the dark red one. This is my color combo for my main yarn, my main color. And for my contrast color, I decided to use stash yarn. Well, this red wine combo is also from stash, but anyway, this is leftover from my Leon sweater by PetiteKnit. So this is Knitting for Olive Merino in the colorway Wild Berries. This lovely medium pink, and I'm pairing it with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colorway Plum Rose. So this is my combo for the contrasting color. Let me show you where this yarn is not as used up. And this is my combo for the Porcelain Sweater. I'm loving these two colors together, and as you can see, I'm going to stick this project. And I have almost no experience with color work. I have zero experience with sticking, so this has like a good chance of going sideways. And I think I'm going to mess something up, but I think so far so good. I don't know, I'm even afraid of saying it's going great, but let me show you the color work up close. Does it look good? I don't even know how to show you guys this. There you go. Yeah. I think it looks good. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm making a V-neck also. So another change to the pattern. The pattern doesn't include instructions for sticking. So I watched a few tutorials on YouTube. I watched a video by, I think it was Suzanne Bryan. And I also watched one from Norman of Nimble Needles. Nimble Needles. And well, it gave me enough confidence to try, but we'll see. Talking about the construction first, according to the pattern, you're supposed to cast on stitches here for the neck, and then you start shaping the back here with increases to get this back panel done. But since I decided to stick, because I didn't really want to knit colorwork flat, so I cut my yarn when I was done with this section of the main yarn, and then I jumped to picking up stitches to knit both fronts. I think I picked up 5 stitches less on each side of the neck to get a more, well, a wider neck opening, because I just think it fits the look of a V-neck a little bit better. If you look at the pattern photos with a round neck, with a crew neck, which is the code for color for this pattern, it sits pretty close to the neck, so I felt like something a little bit more open would look better. So this is what I'm trying to achieve with this project. I also forgot to add a spare cable to my needles here, so I can't really fit this in the mannequin either, and the shape looks weird because of the sticks, but this is it. Since I am knitting a V-neck, I added 5 stitches for each stick, so I have one on each side of the body and a third one here in the middle. I'm so afraid of cutting this when I'm ready to do so, but I want to finish the yoke. I want to knit a good chunk of the body block. According to the tutorials I watched, I am supposed to block this before doing the reinforcement and cutting my stick. But I'm so afraid of this step, I don't even want to think about it now. But as far as the color work goes, I think I'm doing a good job. I don't think it's perfect by any means. You can definitely see that let me show you. Let me show you the back. I don't think I showed you the back up close yet, but I think I'm doing a good job. I mean, you can definitely see that some stitches are looser than others, but I have no idea how I can show you guys this, but some stitches are looser than others, but I think overall it looks nice. I don't know. I'm not seeing much fabric bunching up here on the color work, so maybe that's a good sign. I have my swatch. I haven't frogged my swatch yet, but I didn't really want to break the yarn, so I still have a mess of yarn balls attached here. But since I wanted to stick, I wanted to do the V-neck, I decided to be a good girl and I swatched in the round using the right needle and everything. So this was my swatch. I don't think it looks as good as my project, but that's good. I noticed that I needed to loosen my tension a little bit when knitting the color work. So that's what I tried to do when I cast it on, this project on, and I think it's looking good. I am making a mess here in my lap, but this is it. How am I doing the color, the color? Yes, I almost said color work. Well, I followed the short row instructions for the back of the neck. Well, I think it's actually here on the side of the neck. I have all my stitch markers still attached, but maybe you can see the line here, the shoulder seam here. And this pattern calls for a few short rows to shape this section, so that's what I did. And then I knitted 3 centimeters straight down without any increases. And then on the next row I started doing a make one right and make one left to shape this V-neck here. I hope you can see it like this here. So I did one increase every 4 rows 3 times, and then I started increasing every other row. So according to my math, I'm going to stop my increases when I am like halfway through the next wine section, stockinette section here, after this first colorwork panel. So I think I'm going to get a good depth for this V-neck. I am trying to use my Stockholm Sweater here as a guide, since I am using the same yarn combo, the same needles, and this one also has a V-neck, but this Stockholm Sweater is supposed to be a way deeper V-neck, I think, at least before I pick up stitches to knit the collar. So I'm trying to go with something a little bit less deep than my Stockholm Sweater. So this is it. I don't know if I'm doing everything right when it comes to the steek, but I added 5 stitches according to the tutorials I watched. That's like the go-to number of stitches to cast on, and I cast on 2 rows prior to starting the color work, knit 2 rounds in stockinette, and then did all the color work. And I think I was supposed to knit another 2 rounds in stockinette after the color work, and then I could bound off these stitches here and go back to knitting flat. But I think I'm pretty close to the final length I want for the yoke of this project, so I'm just knitting the round still, and I will bind off these stitches when I am ready to separate for body and sleeves. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but it's what I'm doing and we'll see what happens. I am happy with it. I love these 2 colors and the color work. It looks really nice in terms of color contrast and everything. I am happy with it. I think it's going to look good if I can manage to get everything right when it comes to the sticking. I am worried because once I cut this yarn, there's no going back anymore. So I am worried that, well, do I have the right width? Do I have a good armhole depth and everything? Will I get a good fit with this? I can't really answer any of these questions until I cut the sticks, but I'm so afraid of doing that. So for now, I'm going to knit this stockinette section and we'll see. I am figuring things out as I go, but this is it. I am going to report back on this project, of course, but well, I just have this little hole here, so it's impossible to try this on. It's not oversized enough to allow me to try this on, but maybe now you can see how the V-neck is looking so far. Yeah, something like this. There's a project on Ravelry. I neither decided to modify this pattern to create a V-neck. That's what really inspired me to cast on a porcelain sweater, so here I am, but I don't really understand her instructions, so I'm kind of doing my own version of this modification. I'm not saying she wrote confusing notes, that's not it. I'm just saying I don't understand it. I need a more hands-on modification process. So yeah, I liked her idea and I'm trying to follow her instructions, but I'm kind of doing my own thing as well. I am pretty off gauge, and I've seen a few people commenting that most knitters need to go up a size when knitting the color work. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm using a 4mm for the stockinette sections and a 4.5mm for the color work. I don't think I can tell now if this was a good idea or not, if this was a good decision, but I think it looks good. I don't see any difference in size when it comes to the stockinette and the color work section. Size of my stitches, I mean, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. And just one thing when it comes to this color work, I always felt like one by one color work like we have here and here, I always felt that I wasn't going to enjoy one by one color work because in my head it was the most difficult situation to control your attention because you're switching colors every stitch. But what I'm getting with this project so far is quite the opposite. This one by one section is the part I'm enjoying the most when it comes to following the chart. It's really easy to keep track of my tension. It's really easy to knit and a little bit faster also than this flower motif, snowflake motif. I don't know, this little design here. I'm not as fast knitting color work as I am stockinette, but I think that's to be expected since I'm trying to get more comfortable with this technique and everything. And by the way, I am holding both colors in my left hand. I know it doesn't really, well, it's not really interesting, I would say, for you guys, but it's really more enjoyable to knit holding yarn, holding both colors in my left hand. It's more natural to me, and well, I'm just really happy that I am finally managing to hold both colors in my left hand. But this is it. I still have to get better at it, obviously, but I think so far it's good enough, isn't it? I think it is. I'm trying not to be very judgmental when it comes to my project here, but I think I am going to like it very much in the end. And those are all the projects I have on my needles right now. I think this is going to be a quite long episode, but I just have so many things that I wanted to share with you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. I certainly did, and now I want to go back to my lime green sweater. I think I'm going to add a few rows to this project now, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, giving this video a like, and leaving a comment down below. I always love chatting with you guys, and if you could give me a feedback on this sticking color work situation, I would highly appreciate, because I don't think I really know what I'm doing. But anyway, this is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!